this episode, we are talking about the Mandela Effect. We explain what it is, give you some examples of things that have possibly been changed because of it, and then discuss theories as to why it happened. This is Heather Wood and Jamie Hayhurst, and this is the Intuitive Girl's Guide. Jamie, what do you think about the Mandela Effect?
I am a believer in the Mandela Effect.
Same. And I'm kind of obsessed with it. And I think that I'd categorize it as a conspiracy theory. What do you think?
Yeah, I agree. I mean, I think I'm not sure where it meets intuition or science or anything like that, but I think there's no denying certain aspects of it. I just have no idea why they exist.
Yes, and I'm gonna explain it for our listeners, like exactly what it is in a minute. But I think everyone agrees that the Mandela effect is a thing. Not everybody agrees as to why it's happening, if it is like paranormal or not.
Right.
And I want to talk about all the theories and all the things, and I think some of it you can explain away, but there's a lot of it that I do think has some paranormal aspects to it. So I'm psyched to talk about it with you.
Yeah, same. Let's do this.
Okay. So in order to explain what the Mandela effect is, we first have to talk about Nelson Mandela.
That would be a good place to start.
So, in case you don't know, Nelson Mandela was a political activist in South Africa who fought against apartheid. And he was an amazing political activist, especially active in the 60s through the 90s.
Right.
So he was put in jail for his activism. And then he went on, after he was released from jail, he went on to be president of South Africa. Like, that's pretty amazing to go from an activist thrown in jail to a president. And Nelson Mandela is amazing. I'm condensing him down to this really small bit, but please, I don't want anyone to read this as me just being like, here's like a few dumb facts about him. This is an amazing, amazing man.
Yeah, he was an incredible human. He made huge changes in the world, never mind South Africa.
Exactly. So Nelson Mandela died in 2013 from a respiratory illness.
Or did he?
Okay. I literally have that "or did he" written in my notes with 3 dots, and you said it. So
sorry.
We share a brain. So here's the thing. A lot of people, including myself, remember distinctly Nelson Mandela dying in jail. We remember his funeral. I remember watching his funeral in school in the 90s. I can picture myself as a freshman. I can picture the class I was in. I can picture the talks we had about it. It's more than just quote unquote a false memory for me. It is literally like, wait, what? I remember so much of this experience.
That's incredible because I do not remember that.
Well,
I'm on the team of that.
Well, which is perfect because it's not like everybody remembers it. It's some of us do.
Right.
And the crazy thing is that some people, the people who remember Nelson Mandela's death in jail, which would have been in the 90s, the late 90s, we all remember the same thing. We remember the same timing. We remember the same TV thing. We remember watching it in school. There's so many elements that are the same. So this is what the Mandela effect is. It's like remembering something that didn't happen in like a large group of people sharing this collective memory of something that supposedly did not happen.
Right.
So Fiona Broome is the person who coined the term because she is the first one who pointed it out. She was speaking at something called, I think it was called Dragon Con, and I don't know what that is, but I totally think it sounds amazing.
I think it's like Comic-Con. It's like the predecessor of like a Comic-Con.
Yeah, can we go someday? That's not like if Corona's ever over, I wanna go.
Absolutely.
So she was speaking there, and I guess in between like speeches, a bunch of the people who were speaking were like chatting with each other, and somebody brought up this, the Mandela effect. I hadn't been called that yet, but they brought up this collective false memory of Nelson Mandela having passed away, and this was shortly after he had. Okay, like they're like, wait a minute, I remember this, but it's 2013 and he just died. Like, so it's about this like feeling where you hear that something happened. Like I remember hearing Nelson Mandela had died in 2013 and being like, wait, what? He's
Right.
he's still alive? Like I remember
Right.
him already dying, right? Like it's this weird, odd feeling. So she took to message boards and started sharing about this. And so this is where the term comes from. But it is about this effect happening in so many other areas of our lives, not just with the amazing Nelson Mandela.
Right. He's just the first one that the collective noticed and started to pick up on. But it's just an example of this phenomena.
Yes. So we're going to get to some theories on why it happens. But before we do that, I thought let's talk about some of the most well-known Mandela effects that blow people's mind. So
Okay.
I'm gonna kind of sort of quiz you, I think. I think that would be the most fun. I mean, sometimes we've had sort of like a 50-50 record on quizzes.
Yeah, I bombed the first set of questions and then I nailed the last quiz.
So I
So,
think it's time we quiz you again. I
okay, let's see.
mean, okay. So let's talk about some of the things that people are like have this moment that you just feel like not just like, oh, I don't remember if that's true or not, but you remember it a different way. Let's talk about some of those. Are you ready?
Yes.
Okay. The first one comes from a popular, when we were kids, Jay, set of bears. There were a
Mhm.
family of bears. They were a book series when we were young, and then they became a TV series after that. My kids watched them too. And the name of these bears is one of the most popular Mandela effects. So, what do you remember these bears being named?
So I know this one, and this is one of the ones where I'm kind of on the fence because I remember it being the Berenstain Bears,
Hmm.
but you're gonna say that it's the Berenstain Bears. But I don't have like a vivid enough memory where I'm willing to like die on the sword of the Berenstain Bears. You know what I mean? Like if you ask me, just like I would say Berenstain. That's how I remember it with an E.
Exactly. And you are you're not alone in this like wait, die on the sword thing, but you are like for when this first started coming up, it had been a while since the Berenstain Bears were sort of in culture. They sort of came back. And so
Right.
I think what happened was like our kids, like our generation, kids born in the 80s, grew up in the 90s, our kids started discovering this, and there's a TV show and they're watching it and we're hearing Berenstain and we're
Right.
like, wait, I if you had asked me before I watched the show, I would have said Berenstain.
Yes, exactly.
So it is the Berenstain and it's spelled the last four letters are Tain, not Tein.
Yeah, I thought E.
Same. So it's so massive and people are so confused, even to the point that the actual authors whose last name is Berenstain are like, you guys, it's always been Berenstain. Like that's literally our name. And everyone's like, I'm still not buying it.
So stubborn, us humans.
I know. Okay. The next one, I'm gonna I'm gonna actually give you an explain away for this one after it, which I'm not gonna do for all of them, I promise. But I feel like this one might cause you to like drift away from this theory if I don't tell you why I think people are confused. Does that
Okay.
make sense?
Yeah.
Okay. So the Monopoly guy, can you picture him?
Yes.
Okay. Does he have a monocle or does he not have a monocle?
He does have a monocle.
He does not have a
He
monocle.
does. He does.
In my brain, he so does.
He
And
definitely does.
a lot of these tests are done like visually. So like there would be two pictures in front of you, and one of them would be the Monopoly man with his monocle, and one would be without, and it would be like choose which one is the correct one. And
Right.
everybody chooses the bloody monocle. Everybody is like he has a monocle, except in reality he actually does not have a monocle and never did.
That's really annoying.
Agreed. So here's my little theory as to why. The Monopoly man has a top hat. He's got one of those like old-timey tuxedo-y jackets with the tails.
Right.
And he's got sort of that like that look with like the little facial hair. Like he's got this real look that if you go back in our culture and you look at people from that time period with this same hat and coat, they all have monocles.
Right.
So it is plausible that we just insert it because it's like, why doesn't he have it? But at the same time, how I'll counter that is, well, why didn't they draw him with one?
Right.
If he's representing this old timey guy
Yeah,
who's
he's like this old
rich.
miserly banker or something.
Yeah. So I could go either way with that one.
Yeah, I know. It feels like for if some of us were going to add the monocle for because it's a better design, why would so many of us be doing that? Like, I get that if like a couple of us did that, but if it's this thing where, people are taking tests and the majority of people are choosing the monocle, that's more than just like a design flaw.
Agreed. And it's not people going like, oh, I can't remember if he has a monocle or
Right.
not. It's people going, I am 100% sure that the man has a monocle.
Right. Exactly.
Okay. This next one I love for many reasons, but I think that I would put this as possibly my favorite Mandela effect.
Okay.
Okay, so I'm going to ask you. So in Snow White, I want you to picture the Disney version that we all sort of grew up watching. Can you picture that for a
Yep.
second? Okay. Do you remember what the queen says, the evil queen, when she's looking at her mirror? What's the famous line?
Mirror, mirror on the wall, who's the fairest of them all?
Right. That's what we all remember, Jay, but that's not the line.
What is it?
Magic mirror on the wall.
Well, actually, that makes more sense. Magic mirror, doesn't it?
Does. But you can even I even found all these references to this, like movies and TV shows referencing Mirror Mirror on the Wall. They say Mirror Mirror on the Wall. There's remakes. There's like a weird version with Julia Roberts that didn't do very well, where she's the evil
Oh
queen.
yeah.
She says Mirror Mirror. Like it's weird that we're all remembering it a different way. But I have an even weirder twist to this.
What?
Okay. The original Brothers Grimm Snow White tale. Now, the Brothers Grimm didn't come up with Snow White, but they wrote a version of Snow White, right? Okay. It's from 1812. They wrote Mirror Mirror. Disney, the one that we all know, wrote Magic Mirror. Why are we all remembering an obscure version of the fairy tale from 1812?
Yeah, why are we tapping into that one?
Hmm.
Suspect.
Suspect.
Something here.
Okay. While we're on to famous lines, I know that you're not a big Star Wars fan like I am.
Not yet, as of yet.
Okay, well, I'm definitely forcing you to watch the movie, so it's okay.
Okay.
But you probably know the iconic line, the most famous line from this movie that Luke says to Darth? I'm sorry, that Darth Vader says to Luke. Do you remember?
Yes. Yeah.
Okay, what do you think that line is?
He says, Luke, I am your father.
Right. That's not what he says.
What? See, I can't verify. See, that's just me picking up like pop culture because I haven't actually seen that movie.
But doesn't that tell you something though? Like you haven't seen the movie, yet
Right.
you know the most famous line from it, but
Right.
you know it wrong. Like
What
there's
is
something off about that.
what is it? What is the right one?
He says, "No, I am your father."
What?
I know. So Luke says to him like, "You killed my father," and he says, "No, I am your father."
Sorry for the spoiler alert. Spoiler alert for everybody who's listening.
I think that you are probably one of the few people who have never seen this movie,
Yeah,
and you
and
probably knew
I
that.
know coincidence, right?
Yeah.
No, that's crazy that no, I definitely thought it was Luke.
Okay. The Ford logo. This is what I'm going to tell you guys to all go look up, because there's no way that I can really quiz you on this because I mean, I know that you know stuff about cars, Jay, but there's no way that I'm gonna like make you correctly draw the Ford logo and that would be any kind of like test.
Okay.
But in the Ford logo, when you guys go look it up, you're probably picturing it, right? It's like white writing and it's in like a blue oval.
Right.
The F is written in this weird cursive way with this little loop on it that
Yes.
if you ask people to pick, nobody picks the right one with the loop.
Oh, really?
Yeah, it's almost like the F has a little eye, like a eye attached to it. It's really strange. And like I feel kind of like my eyes are assaulted. I'm like, why would anyone put that stupid looking loop in there? But that's the Ford logo. And again, nobody picks it in a lineup.
No, I just picture it as a sort of a flowy F, but it's not, has no like twirlies or anything on it.
Yep, you're gonna have to look that up because
Oh,
it's weird.
okay.
Okay. Okay, so this is a very famous one. However, I don't even think I would chalk this up to a Mandela effect, but I want your opinion on this, Jay. Okay. Is the popular TV show and movies and books, is it Sex in the City or Sex and the City?
In.
Nope, it's and.
What? Okay. I would say I'm failing this quiz, but I think it's really subjective, right? It's like, it's like, am I Mandela affected or not?
I
Apparently, I.
think that you're passing the quiz and that you're choosing what most people choose and are saying like, no, this was changed. This was what it was. When did it become this? I remember it as this. So I think that you're passing.
Okay, I'll take that.
So it's Sex and the City. And the thing that I will say, I'm gonna give you a way to lean in or to lean out, depending on how you feel about this one. It's hard to understand because it's like Sex in the City. Like people
Right.
just say it like as if there's just an end there. And are they saying like Sex in the City or Sex and the City? It's really difficult to hear.
Right.
So that's the part where I'm like, meh. But there's people you can find them on YouTube and also TikTok if you want to search for the Mandela Effect hashtag. I did all of those things. Um, who will show you old merch that they have from Sex in the City, and it says Sex in the City on it.
What?
I know.
See, that's I was going to say the same thing. Like it might just be people speaking too fast and blurring that word.
Hmm.
That's different if there's actual merch to back it up.
I know. It's weird. Okay, merch could be printed wrong,
True.
right?
True.
But it's just weird. Okay. Um, you know the company Oscar Mayer.
Yes.
Okay. How do you spell the last name Mayer?
You want me to sing the song to you?
I would really enjoy it if you did.
I'm sure our listeners would really enjoy it. It's my baloney has a last name. I mean, a first name. It's Oscar. Blah 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 blah. And it's Mayer.
It's Mayor. It's spelled like John Mayer, but everyone seems to think it's spelled either the way you said it or Meyer.
What?
I know. Weird.
That is weird.
Okay, the famous peanut butter. Is it Jif or Jiffy?
Jeff.
Yeah, most people pick Jiffy.
Really?
I'm going to say that maybe they're confused with Skippy and the fact that there's like Jiffy Lube.
I
I'm
was just
going to
gonna say
say.
that.
Mm-hmm. But people feel like that is. All right. This one's funny. Does Curious George, can you picture him?
Yes. My
The
kids loved Curious George.
same. Does he have a tail or not?
He does not have a tail.
He does not have a tail, except people remember him having a tail. And here's the thing, this is another generational thing. So, like our kids' age, if you ask them, they'll say, he doesn't have a tail. But for people like our age and older, they can remember these specific instances in the cartoon where he's swinging from his tail.
I was just gonna say I kind of remember him like bouncing on his tail.
Yeah. So there's that. Now, this is sort of, I think, could be like the Monopoly guy with the monocle, where like when you think of a monkey, you think of a tail. Like,
Right.
so maybe you're just adding it in, but it is weird that, again, you're forming a specific memory of him using the tail, not like, oh, I can't remember,
Right.
right?
Yes.
Oh, I love this one because I am also victim to this one. Okay, do you remember the movie in the 90s where Sinbad was a
Listen,
genie? It was called Shazam.
I'm stopping you right here. I'm stopping you. This is my Mandela effect moment. And I
Mhm.
think that this is what people need to experience. Like you can give people these quizzes like, oh, is it Jif or Jiffy? And your ego can rationalize like why you made a mistake about it until you have that moment where you're like, no, this exists. And like everyone is trying to tell you it doesn't exist, then you're like, this shit is real.
Exactly.
So I do remember the movie you're about to talk about.
I love that this is the one that takes you down. I
Oh
think
my
this
God.
is like my favorite tidbit of information in this whole podcast.
I remember someone like saying it didn't exist, and I was like, no, no, it does. And I Googled it, and I remember like there was nothing on Google, and I can see the movie poster, everything. We should go ahead and explain what it is, but I remember
Yeah,
this.
same. I also remember this and
Yes.
can my brother and I constructed the whole plot of the movie
Yes.
together. Like it's in our brain. So the Mandela effect going on here is that a bunch of us remember a movie called Shazam from
Yes.
the 90s that starred Sinbad, who was playing a genie.
Yes.
So if you're like hearing us talk about this and going, "Oh yeah," and picturing it, bad news is it never existed. There was never a movie called Shazam. Sinbad never played a genie.
No, and like I remember the poster, like I said, but I can see like those 90s like bright colored clothes he had on. Like they gave him that genie outfit, but like mixed it with sort of like pop fashionable clothing for the 90s. So it was like very memorable.
Mhm.
To me it was. And I was like Google image searching it, nothing. It's like not there. Now
Mhm.
now if you Google it, you get Mandela effect results.
Exactly. And I can even picture Jay like the hair. Like he had like a bald head and there was like that tiny little ponytail on the very top. Do you remember that?
Yeah.
So the thing that people say is that there was another movie called Kazam that Shaq was in, and he
No.
played Genie.
No. No, 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 Shaq.
Agreed. I would remember if it was Shaq because Shaq is one of those people. Maybe people are going to be mad at me for this. It's fine. You can send me angry mail. I don't fully believe that he's like a real human. Like what's going on here? You're a giant. Like
Yeah,
you
he's a
are.
big dude. Yeah,
Yeah.
he's imposing.
Yeah. So like I have always really paid attention to Shaq, and I think he's like hysterically funny, like whatever. I'm not trying to bash him, but like he's somebody who's always stood out in my mind. Like you don't mistake anybody else for Shaq, and you
No.
definitely don't confuse Sinbad and Shaq.
No, because Sinbad was a comedian and he was kind of irreverent and like like in the 90s, I mean, you might be too young for this, but like he was a big name. He wasn't as big as Shaq is now, like sort of forever big like that, but he had a very specific personality, a very memorable personality.
Agreed. And I would also say like before I knew that this was a Mandela effect thing, if you were like, hey, who's Sinbad? I would have said, oh, he was a comedian in the 90s and an actor. And he was in this movie I loved called Shazam, and he played a genie. Like I would have said that.
Yeah, I actually can't name anything else that he was in besides like stand-up comedy. Like, because Shazam would have been the only thing I'd be able to say that he was in.
Yes, exactly. Okay. Um, what is Forrest Gump's famous line while he's sitting on the bench?
Life is like a box of chocolates.
Yeah, except he said life was like a box of chocolates.
Oh, past tense?
Yeah. Uh-uh. No, that's not what he said.
No, no. It doesn't even sound right when you say it. It sounds awkward.
Especially because the next line is you never know what you're gonna get, right? So like is it that's that's like present tense.
Yeah, you're changing the tense. I get that like he's looking back on his life, that would make sense, but that's not at all how I remember it.
Same. I don't like it.
No, no.
Okay, so I was never a Star Trek person.
Mm,
I do have like I remember my dad watching Star Trek a lot when I was growing up, so it was like a show in the background for me. Um,
right.
and so I would maybe I'm wrong about this. I'm not like the biggest Star Trek fan, so like maybe we're gonna get angry emails about this too. I don't know, but I think the most famous line from Star Trek is "Beam me up, Scotty." Would you agree?
Oh, I was going to say live long and prosper.
Okay, so that's a great point. I would say maybe this is the second most popular.
That's not a Mandela effect though. That's just a different opinion.
So, but you've heard "Beam me up, Scotty."
Oh yeah, absolutely.
I think I've said it before, like jokingly to like I don't know. I don't know why I would have said it. I'm sure it's dorky, but like to lift up somewhere. Like I hear people say this is what I
Yeah,
mean.
no, people say it like get me out of here.
Yeah.
Like beam me up, Scotty, like get me out of here.
Yes, and most people picture William Shatner saying this line, okay?
Yeah.
Except he never says this in the entire Star Trek like series ever. He never says "Beam me up, Scotty."
No one says it.
No, they say "Beam me up." I found one time that he said "Scotty, beam me up," but he never says "Beam me up, Scotty."
That's weird.
I know. Why do we all say that then?
I don't know. I don't know if it's just like I don't know. Part of me wants to be like, you know, humans kind of run with them without like checking their authenticity. But I mean, for that to happen over and over and over again in different movies and shows, that's a lot of congruity or whatever the word is.
Agree that there's so many of these things are things that we all saw and we all misquote, even if someone's saying it wrong. And I gotta tell you, as an older sister, I loved correcting my brother when he said stuff wrong. Like it was one of my great childhood like delights.
Yeah, I bet. I bet.
So I feel like I would have been really aware of people saying something wrong. I think I still am. Like I still am like a corrector in my head. I don't always say it out loud, but I totally correct people inside my head. So I feel like I would have noticed.
Yeah, I'm with you on that. I'm a corrector too inside my head.
Okay.
Yeah.
So you know that I have a real deep love for Mr. Rogers, right?
Yes.
Okay. If anyone would know what the song is that he sings when he walks out, it would be me because I love this man so deeply. Um, and so most of us remember "It's a Beautiful Day in the Neighborhood," right?
Don't say it's not that.
Gonna ruin your childhood, Jay. "It's a beautiful day in this neighborhood," is what supposedly he says.
Huh.
It's too essy. Like, sing it in your head. Like, "It's a beautiful day in this neighborhood." Like, that doesn't work. No, it's not. It's the neighborhood.
That's so weird.
No.
What a bummer.
I know. I'm so sorry.
Like
Let's,
you got it, like I've gotten it wrong for 40
yeah.
years.
Or did we, Jay? Or did something happen
Or did
that
right, or
messed
did they
us?
switch it?
Yeah.
Right. Could be.
Okay. So you remember, call back to the episode that we did on JFK and Abraham Lincoln, right? How many
Hmm.
people how many people were in the car when JFK got shot? Like including JFK. JFK was there, Jackie. Who else was in the car?
Four?
There were six people in the car.
What?
I know. No, there was not. Are you kidding me? There was four. Nope. Apparently there were six. I don't even know who the other extra people are. I couldn't even write it down because it bothered me so much.
Wow, that's weird. I have to go look at those photos.
I know. Jay, we extensively researched this. I think
I
that
know.
like just changed. I don't know.
It's weird.
Okay, the fruit of the loom. You know, the like cute little underwear company with all the fruit.
Yep.
Okay. when you picture the logo and you see all of the fruit, right? Is
Yeah.
there a cornucopia behind the fruit, or is there just like nothing behind the fruit?
I feel like back in the 80s and the 90s, there was definitely a cornucopia. I don't know if there is now, but there was.
There was never a cornucopia.
Why would I just add that in?
That's what I mean. Like, okay, yes, there's like the cornucopia, you see fruit coming out of it, but I don't feel like the cornucopia is like enough of a reference in our brains that we would add it in like a monocle to like an old-timey banker. Like, why would we add that?
No, actually not regarding underwear. Like, why would we feel compelled to add that in? No, weird.
Okay, I'm gonna give you the one that I just found, and then I'm gonna give you one more, and then we'll start talking about theories because I don't want everyone to get bored with all of these. But okay, do you remember when Ed McMahon back in the day was the spokesperson for Publishers Clearinghouse?
Yes.
Yeah, you know you don't because he never was.
Yes, he was.
I know.
Was.
I know. He wasn't. He never worked for
Those
Publishers Clearinghouse.
commercials, and he had that stupid skinny microphone.
Yeah, and he would like surprise people and knock on their door, and it would be Ed McMahon there with money.
A big check, like a
Yeah,
big oversized check.
he never did that.
Come on.
I know. This one hurt my head so bad. Again, if you said, tell me about Ed McMahon, I would have said he was, Johnny Carson's sidekick.
Yes.
He hosted many like random TV shows,
Yeah.
and he was the Publishers Clearinghouse guy.
He wasn't at all.
No. In fact, Publishers Clearinghouse never had celebrities handing out checks. That wasn't a thing.
What?
I know.
No, this isn't. See, this is different than like Sex in the City and Sex and the City. Like that's sort of just like a little discrepancy. But this is just a flat out wrong memory or faulty memory or something.
So the best I could do is like he would sometimes do something for something called American Publishing, but this was not giving away money or checks. It just has the name publishing in it. But I don't buy that we misremembered it because I literally like I I can remember this. And I even found people with like Halloween costumes dressed up as Ed McMahon holding big giant checks.
First of all, that's a great costume.
I know.
Second of all, what the hell?
Right? Okay. I get this one, that one
Fine.
makes my head spinny. Okay. My last one for you is the existence of somebody again who maybe I don't put into, I totally believe this is a real human. Like maybe it's an alien or some other being. I don't know.
Okay.
So Elon Musk.
Okay. Fine.
You're already
What about him?
okay. He is somebody that is referenced often with the Mandela effect. So there was a man. He chooses to remain anonymous. I don't know why, but I think it's probably because he's like a professor or whatever. But he we'll call him Jim. Okay.
Okay.
Jim was a TA, a teacher's assistant, and his whole entire life was obsessed with space. Like anything to do with space, he he knew. Like since he was like 7. Like this man was obsessed with space. And so he was a TA, so he went into the class one day and suddenly everyone is talking about somebody named Elon Musk and SpaceX as if it has always been around and no one and he's sitting there having that moment that you just had when I told you Ed McMahon never handed out checks for Publishers Clearinghouse. Like like there he's like what is happening to the
Right.
point where he even like asks a few questions and everyone in the room is like what are you talking about? Elon
Oh,
Musk. They referenced that he also had started I think it was PayPal, like one of those.
yeah.
Um
Like
and
that.
like he was like I have never heard of this man and he's SpaceX, he's Tesla, he has those ties to PayPal. So he's like, what the heck? So he goes onto Reddit
Hmm.
This was like 10 years ago, so that's why it's Reddit. And he starts posting about it, and a ton of people are like, I had a very similar experience. I was in a room and everyone's talking about this guy that I had never heard of, and like, why hadn't we heard of this like genius cajillionaire, guy? Like, where did he come from?
I'm actually in that camp as well. I
Same.
don't, not that I am a scientist or an academic at all, but I remember hearing, I think actually hearing on the radio someone talking about Elon Musk, but it being like as if everyone knew who he was. And I
Mhm.
remember that feeling of being like, who, what are they talking about? Like, and thinking, I would remember that name. It's not like he has a name like Joe Smith where you would just miss it, like Elon Musk is very memorable. So
Mhm.
I remember having, it wasn't earth shattering to me like it was to this gym person, but I remember being like, I've never heard of this guy. Like, where have I been? I
Same.
don't know. Yeah.
Same. As I feel like I am pretty up on like this. Oh my God, I sound so old when I'm saying this. I was gonna say I'm pretty up on pop culture. I'm also old. But I had the same experience where it was actually my husband who started talking about him because of Tesla. Like he was super interested. My husband went on to work for Tesla for a while, but like
Right.
he was talking about this guy that he had just found out about, and he's like so amazing, and he started a space program, and I'm like, wait, there's a space program that's not NASA? Like I just remember like we should have heard about this guy. And then I thought like, well, who do I remember inventing PayPal? And I'm like, I don't remember anyone even inventing PayPal.
Yeah,
That was a big
exactly.
deal. Like we should know who did that, but we don't.
Yeah.
It was a weird. I'm with you. It was like, where did this guy come from?
Right. There's a glitch somewhere there.
Glitch in the matrix for
Yeah.
sure. Okay. Those are my Mandela effects for you. I'll put some of those in the show notes for listeners if you want to look. Like I'll put the Ford logo. I'll put some like next to each other, and you can try to choose which one's right and wrong. But it'll blow your mind, and you can also Google these things and you'll see them. But like it really something will get you. One or two of these will really like get to you, and you'll be like, oh, something's going on.
And maybe I'll do a hand-drawn sketch of the Shazam poster since it doesn't actually exist.
Please.
I'll draw it from memory. You can.
I think we talked to Sinbad and we're like, can we just create this movie now? Because we all remember it. Like, let's just
Yeah,
do it. Like, we could all put the plot together if we all work together, right?
absolutely.
Okay.
Yep.
All right. Let's do it. Sinbad, if you're listening. We'll be right back after this short break. Let's talk about why this might be happening. There's a bunch of different theories. Jay, you're going to do one theory, but I think that the theory that you're going to talk about is the most interesting. So, how do you feel about us doing that one last?
Sure.
Okay.
Yeah.
Um, so the main theories, let me just tell you what the theories are, and then there's one that I kind of want to talk about more than the others, and then I want to talk about yours.
Okay.
So some people say that the reason this is happening is because there are parallel universes or something called the multiverse, and something happened
Hmm.
and we switch from one to the other, or we're suddenly in a different one than we were in before. I sort of think of it as like, in Stranger Things when the boy gets stuck in the upside down.
Yes.
That's sort of how I picture like parallel universes working. So we're either being sucked in or someone like Elon Musk is jumping into our universe. Something weird is happening with the multiverse. That's one theory.
Okay.
Now, if you fall down this sciencey rabbit hole, maybe you hear that and you're like, that's way too far fetched, or it just sounds like something out of like a Marvel movie. There are many scientists who believe that there's a multiverse and there are parallel universe. Like this is not
Yeah.
just being woohoo trippy.
Oh, yeah. Lots of scientists have theorized different universes and multiverses.
Exactly. The idea of alternate realities that we sort of in our brains switch in between is another one. So, like, there's the whole thing about like our brain hallucinates our reality and that it sometimes switches tracks. That's another one where they say that could be to blame.
That one doesn't make me feel great.
I don't like that one. I actually like the upside
Explanation.
down parallel universe one better. Yeah.
Yeah.
Um, time travel, which we've been talking a lot about, is another one. I like this one, Jay. I like it because it's talking about like the butterfly effect, and it's talking about how, I know some of these things are really small, like in the scheme of things, Curious George having a tail or not, like why would that change? But if you read about the butterfly effect and like teeny little things changing because someone goes back in time, I think that one's a little bit plausible.
So you're saying you think that the Mandela effect is basically just like a side effect of time travel?
Yes, people are time traveling. Maybe they're in the future, maybe they're in the past, maybe they're time traveling right now. And they're going back and just their existence back there changes one little thing and everything changes. Like Biff going back in time with the almanac in Back to the Future. Like
Right.
little things being changed, like, yeah, it causes these tiny little glitches, and all of us are like, wait a minute, I remember the old way. And some people are like, no, I don't remember. They didn't notice the difference because it didn't stand out to them for whatever reason.
All right. I can get on board with that one. That one feels okay.
Okay. And then you're going to do a theory in a second, but I want to talk to you about the psychology element of it because I want to explain it. I think some of it is really plausible, but then I'm going to sort of undo it a little bit after that.
Okay.
Okay. I love psychology. I study psychology. I study human behavior. I study the brain. I'm a huge fan of that stuff. So I think it's important to be like, let's look at what psychology says about the human brain about why this might be happening.
Yes, I like that
So
idea.
there's a thing called collective misremembering. And that's what psychiatry will say is responsible for all of these Mandela effects. So, collective misremembering, I could explain for 8 hours, but I will not do. I will condense it down, but I want you to know it's a more complicated thing than how I'm going to explain it. But basically, our brain has two things that we think are attributing to this. One is that our brain loves a pattern. It loves a pattern. So is let's take the Monopoly man with his monocle or not for a minute. Our brain has like filed in it all these images that look like the Monopoly man of a guy with the hat and the coat with a monocle. So because it does that, it just fills in the monocle for you, even though it's not there, because your brain is seeking patterns all the time.
That makes sense.
Okay. The other thing that your brain does is it fills in empty space. Your brain doesn't just let something be a I don't know. Like when you ask someone a question and they say I don't know, I can't think of anything, they're not telling the truth because the brain always thinks of something. What they're saying is I don't feel confident enough in what my brain just came up with to say it out loud.
Gotcha. That's why people are terrible, um, like witnesses in courtrooms.
Exactly, exactly. So, like for example, if I say to you, "Why is the sky blue?" You might not know the actual answer to that, but there's a process that's going to start happening in your brain where your brain is going to immediately pop in a theory. And you're intuitively going to figure out how much you trust that theory or not. But your brain has to come up with an answer. So your brain might have gone like, I wonder if it's because there's so much ocean and then it's blue. And then your intuition might go, that's not right, but that's a simple enough explanation that we grabbed it. And there's got to be some element of truth to it. So what your brain is going is this is the answer we come up with, and your intuition's going, but we know it's not the real answer. And then if you go a little further, your brain will start to grab more if you push past that, right? If you just go, I don't know there, your brain will just be like, "Meh." But if you're like, what else is there? You'll start to get something like, I think it has to do with prisms and light and our viewpoint. Like, so you'll get more. It's just that you don't know enough that your brain didn't save it. It couldn't explain it easy enough that it didn't like save that information to be easily accessible. Does that make
Okay.
sense?
Yep.
So what that theory says is that like you don't know when I say to you, does the Monopoly man have a monocle or not? You don't actually know because your brain didn't store it didn't go like, you know what, let's flag the Monopoly man. He's going to be important someday when you're on a podcast and someone says, does he have a monocle or not? So it just is like, I think he does. You know what I mean? And it grabs a story.
Right, and that's called gist memory. Like when you like you have like a general idea of something, but you're not exactly sure of it, and that your brain stores it as like gist memory.
Exactly. I'm going to tell you one more part of this, but I feel like this is a good time to say that like our memories are not very good. The human brain is not very good at remembering.
Right.
In fact, I fell down a rabbit hole, Jay, about how when you're remembering a memory, you're not remembering the memory, you're remembering the last time you remembered the memory.
I've heard that before, and that it's such a spin to think of it like that.
Oh, I feel like it starts to get into like how I get confused about time travel. Like, wait, like if you go back, then the future, like the grandfather paradox, like all of that stuff. Like, I have the same feeling when people say you're just remembering the last time you remembered the memory. Like, I can't.
Right, and you also are remembering what other people have said about it. Like if you and I went somewhere and I had like a vague memory of it, you could be like, "Oh, you were wearing that red sweater." And I could have been wearing a black hoodie.
Hmm.
But because you said it and I didn't remember, it would become like an actual memory of mine that I was wearing a red sweater and it would be false.
Exactly. But you would remember it and 100% trust that memory.
Right.
Yeah, it's crazy. Um, Another thing is I might say this wrong, but I'm going to give it a shot. The Deist Rodiger McDermott paradigm is the fancy name for this. But basically, this is that the thing that you were just mentioning, where your brain sort of like remembers stuff in like a pattern, even if it wasn't there. So what this like paradigm is like they have you like memorize words. Okay, so let's say they have you memorize 12 words and they pop up on a screen and you got to memorize them, and then they say, okay, repeat back the words. People misremember in this very particular way. So let's say I have you like do a bunch of words like bed, pillow, blanket, dream, right? And I do a bunch of words like this, but I never say the word sleep, right?
Okay.
When you go back and tell me the words you memorized, you're going to say sleep because they all have to do with sleep. I never said sleep, but you'll misremember hearing the word sleep.
Because your brain did the inference on its own.
Your brain is like, this is a bunch of words that have to do with sleep, and you thought sleep, and so it makes like a thing that says sleep, and then all the words come off of it, but we never said sleep. It just sort of gathers that and remembers it.
Yikes.
I know. And then lastly, your brain puts things in something called schemas,
Yep.
which is basically its filing system, and it makes it easier for you to remember everything. So the way I think of this is that like instead of having everything that you ever have to do just in alphabetical order, it has it grouped by sort of category. So for example, if I said, Jay, let's go to the beach right now, your brain wouldn't have to like file through everything about what you'd have to do to go to the beach. It would just pull up the go to the beach file and it would automatically think like sunscreen, blanket, snacks, water, chair, right?
Yep.
It's got a file on that already. It
I
would
like
just pull it up. Okay. Here's the problem though. And this is really evident in this one particular place. They call this actually the Hamilton problem.
that. Oh.
In that when you say to people like, all right, name some presidents, people will name Alexander Hamilton as a president.
Oh,
Now,
he wasn't.
he never was, but because your filing system, you heard Alexander Hamilton so much when you heard like Thomas Jefferson and George Washington and all these other people, and you heard like he's on
Money.
right, like you group him in and you remember him as a president, but he wasn't a president. Does that make sense?
Yes, that makes a lot of sense.
Okay. So this part right here is what they think happened with the Sinbad movie. So I want to explain this to you right now.
Okay.
So apparently when this supposed Shaq movie Kazam was out. Okay, you now if you are super young, you're going to have to like Google what like a tape looks like. But you and I can remember, Jay. Remember tapes that you would put in the VCR?
Yeah, a VHS tape.
Exactly. So on the cover of these VHS tapes would be like a picture of the movie, almost like a poster that you would see now if you go to the movies, right? It'd be like
Right.
on there. And then there would be down the bottom there'd be like a little tiny picture that was like a preview.
Okay.
And like on the movie when you watched it, there would be a preview for this movie that was going to come out later. Okay.
Yes.
Okay. So that little picture would be on the box. Now, on the Shazam box, the people found the Shazam, the movie with Shaq.
Sam.
On that genie movie that none of us believe exists, but apparently does, in down the bottom is a advertisement for a Sinbad movie where he plays like I think a Secret Service guy or something.
No.
I know. So people are saying, "Oh, it's the schema. You
Right.
remember this." Now, here's how I believe all the psychology stuff probably plays a part. I definitely do. Here's the part that I can't settle. There are some of these Mandela effects, like Nelson Mandela himself, and us all remembering Sinbad in a movie he wasn't in, and like a few of these that Elon Musk's existence
Right.
that cause me to feel this feeling in my gut that I get. It's an intuition when something isn't right.
Yes.
Okay, so why would that happen if I'm just misremembering? There are plenty of times where I misremember something and someone's like, oh no, that was then, or this happened and you don't remember. And I don't get that feeling.
Right.
With some of these, I get that feeling. It's like this the air gets let out of you for a second and you're like, ugh, like it feels really weird. You get like goosebumpy and like stuff doesn't align and you're like, something happened. I get like that when I'm having any kind of paranormal experience. And I get like that with a lot of these.
Same. Exactly. I think that the ego can be quick to write some of it off, but some of these experiences just feel off. Maybe
Yes.
not wrong, but they feel off.
And I can see misremembering or like maybe let's talk about Nelson Mandela for a minute. Maybe I saw a different funeral on TV at school and I misremember it as Nelson Mandela's because also like maybe he gave a speech around that time and like my brain did the schema thing and like misremembered that.
Right.
Okay, I can say okay. Why though can I remember emotions? That that doesn't make sense. Nowhere in psychology is it explaining why I can pull up how it felt.
Right. And why are so many other people doing that misfiling that you are doing?
Exactly. And why are we all misfiling it the same way? If we were like, no, no, he didn't die in prison, he died like this, or no, no, he died here, or it was this. Like we're all misremembering it the same.
Right.
That's weird.
That is that, and all of that put together, the emotional aspect, the collective part of it, all of those together make a very strange moment for people.
Exactly. So I'm gonna stay with the psychology part. I think some of it is playing a role.
Hmm.
100% believe that. But I don't buy that that's the only explanation that this like collective misremembering is the explanation for it. I can't fully get on board with that.
I'm with you
Okay.
100%.
So you have a really trippy theory. I love this that you're going to tell us about why the Mandela effect might be happening.
Okay. So I do. This is one of the big ones on like the message boards and, all over the internet. This is one of the big Mandela effect conspiracy theories. And it involves the CERN facility, which is in Switzerland. Um, it's basically a group of, if you're not familiar with CERN, it's a group of European scientists where they do nuclear research. And this theory to me feels like you said earlier, Heather, that like I'm in like an Avengers movie. Like this feels like the stuff you don't see about government, like the stuff that the government doesn't let the people know. Like this is sort of that level stuff.
Yeah,
And
and
I'm not saying that it doesn't happen.
right, and I'm gonna add to that and say like first of all, if you haven't heard of CERN before, go look them up because they're it's just like wacky, controversial, cuckoo stuff. Like definitely look it up. But also, the government does a lot of stuff, and I think we'll probably do an episode on this at some point. But like the government has done extensive stuff with like remote viewing and like all different kinds of like psychic stuff and like extensive. So if you're hearing that there's this government thing that does these nuclear things and wait till she keeps going because it gets trippier and you're like I can't buy that. You got to buy it. This happens.
Oh, it definitely happens. It's just like when and where and how bad you want to believe the scope of it is.
Exactly.
Um, so what happened? Let's go back to 1998. when the researchers at the CERN facility were they were theorizing this thing called the Higgs boson, which is a subatomic particle, and it's what you probably have heard, God particle. That's what the Higgs boson is the God particle. And the theory behind the God particle is that before the Big Bang, everything was symmetric and nothing had mass. Like you talked about, Heather, in the other time episodes about like what was time and what was space before the Big Bang. It was very different from what we are now. It created life. And so what the scientists are theorizing is that this God particle happens right after the Big Bang. This God particle exists, and it's what gave everything in the universe life. So it's someone referred to it as like the yeast in bread. Like all the ingredients exist, but the God particle is the yeast that makes life begin. And
Yep.
this is like on an atomic level. I'm not talking humans, like atoms. This is what the God particle does. So the problem is that this exists for such a short amount of time that there's no way for scientists to observe it or recreate it without recreating the Big Bang. So lofty goals, right? Like this is what these CERN researchers did. They said we have to see if this God particle exists. So let's create a Big Bang.
Right. Not dangerous at all, I wouldn't.
No, I mean
Right.
not dangerous at all. So in 1998, they took 10 years to build this like nuclear collider. They call it the collider. And it basically, they dug like these tunnels underneath the ground, underneath the facilities, like 17 miles worth of digging and construction underground to create these big machines. So they created that. It took them 10 years. That brings us 10 years forward to 2008. And people know about it. Like this isn't like most of it's underground, but like the world knows that CERN is creating this collider and that they're trying to recreate the Big Bang.
Yeah, like you can go back and find like news articles about that this was happening.
Right. So they have this particle collider. People know it's happening. They know what day it's happening, but they don't know what time. So essentially, a lot of the world is sitting like waiting to see if we all die. Like
Yeah.
they don't like basically part of the world, like the people that knew about it, were on pins and needles
Right.
waiting to see what would happen.
I don't know if I've been Mandela affected, but like I'm going to tell you that I don't remember this and I'm glad I don't remember
No,
this.
I don't remember this either. And like
It
I have
sounds like
children, right.
it sounds like some 2020 kind of BS thing that'd be happening, but
Right.
it was
Right.
back in the day.
Right. So like people were like, well, what's going to happen? Like, is this going to like bring us into this new universe and everything's going to change, or is it going to create a black hole and we all get like sucked away and like get destroyed? No one knew. So we waited, and then we waited, and nothing happened, or at least nothing big enough to cause like concern or chaos. The day happened and it passed, and we all lived to see another day.
Right. So we didn't notice anything basically,
Right.
right? We didn't notice that anything was different.
Right. What year did Mandela die?
So Nelson Mandela died in 2013, but it was 2009 that Fiona Broome came up with this theory called the Mandela Effect.
Exactly. So this happened in 2008, and then Broome started theorizing in 2009, and then it was all over the internet in 2010. So there's these years where it's possible we start noticing glitches or inconsistencies. And so what the conspiracy theorists, or just the people of the internet, what they theorize is that every time the collider was used, there were shock waves that went out from our universe because it was such like a big experience. It was a big bang that these shock waves went out and it rippled through our universe and made us sort of like, the people online will say like that we aligned with other universes. In my head, I picture it as like we were bumping up against, right? Like it kind of like it rippled our universe and then we bumped up into other universes. And this these people are saying that every time that happened, things got shifted, things changed. All these little things that we call the Mandela effect were affected. The
Hmm.
thing with CERN, though, is that they didn't just do this once. They didn't do this Big Bang thing once to observe. They didn't say, okay, we'll do this once, observe the God particle, and be done with. I mean, they spent hundreds of millions of dollars in 10 years to get this done, and we're humans and we're greedy, right? So we have to do more, 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 more. So they did it a bunch. They don't know how many times they recreated. So that's the theory, is that, they did it one time and like the fruit of the loom lost the cornucopia. And the next time Looney Tunes went from being spelled with two O's to being spelled with a U, right?
Hmm.
Like that's another one. People are like, why would Looney Tunes be U,
Right. Like it's
like
hard
Looney
to,
Tunes?
right, right.
Right. So so it's every time something like this happened, little glitches happened. Every time we sort of butted up against and bumped into another universe, these mix-ups, these glitches happened.
Yeah, like Ed McMahon suddenly wasn't the Publishers Clearinghouse guy.
Right. So then 2 years later is when we start theorizing, and now we're 10 years later. So we're noticing all of these glitches.
Hmm. I think this is my favorite theory. If I had to pick one that was like, and I think probably all of them have some sort of like element, but like I would pick this one as my favorite. What about you?
I mean, this one I get a little lost in the like, well, we're bumping into the universe next to us, but like, how come we don't all remember? How come it doesn't all get glitchy? But it's because it's not on purpose. It's like a mistake. This Big
Yeah,
Bang is like sending us kind of flying, and like at least atomically and partically. So,
exactly. And it's sort of like I think about like you go to sleep one night and you wake up because like that's you're sort of going into another dimension. I know that's kind of trippy, but right, but you come back
right.
and you came back to like a slightly different reality, right? Like so I don't know. I think
Yeah.
I love that. I'm obsessed with that one. I like that so much.
There's also the theory, which I don't agree with actually at all, but I think it's fascinating, is the simulation theory, that
Oh,
people
yes.
actually think that we are in a computer. Like
Yes.
like people think that we're actually in the matrix.
Yep.
And I use that term like, oh, there's a glitch in the matrix, and I mean that. Like I think that there's like a glitch in like the collective consciousness in like the actual universe itself. But
Mhm.
some people believe that there's actually a supercomputer that we are a part of and we don't know, like almost in the Truman Show.
Mhm.
Like you don't know that you're a part of this experiment, or in this case a computer game.
Right. And either the computer got something wrong or they're messing with little things to see if we notice and
Exactly.
how we react. Yes.
Exactly. And I
Yeah.
think that that can be seen in real, like when we talk about human behavior, this is sort of like I'm digressing a bit, but like, you can see that in real life, like with cults and stuff. Oh, but like people who are raised and born into cults, they don't know any different. They don't know that there's like a whole world outside. So that's not that hard for me to believe. But do I believe we're actually like code in a computer? No, I don't believe that.
I'm with you. I totally am with the idea that like glitches and things could happen in the quote unquote matrix and in collective consciousness that like things get shifted. I totally believe it. I don't think that we're in like the actual matrix like the movie or that
Right.
like
We're
um
odds.
right, I don't think that, but I do think that there is something to that because there are so many times when I think like something just glitched. That wasn't right. Like, and my brain will try to reason it somehow, but I'll be like, and I'll kind of look up at the sky like, what are you doing?
Right. And I think like to your point about like it feeling wrong is that like it doesn't settle, it doesn't sit right with me that the idea that like if something weird happens in my life, it's because someone is like messing with me or someone's screwing with me and like testing to see if I notice it. Like I do not believe that that's how this world works.
Same. I don't think of like a god or whatever you picture to be up there like messing with us. I'm more thinking that like something's going on in the world that's causing stuff to shift or time to move funny or something to like happen in the past. That's why I like the time travel and butterfly effect idea, right? That like things are not flowing in like the quote unquote normal way.
Exactly. I'm with you 100% on that.
Okay, there we go. So I don't know. I'm gonna say, well, we know the Mandela effect is real, whether you think it's like a psychology thing or you think it's because of CERN or whatever. But I'm gonna say when it comes to like conspiracy theories, I love a conspiracy theory.
Hmm.
My least favorite part of it is like saying exactly which thing is true. Like I don't actually care that much. I just love that they exist and that there's like things to question.
Same. I feel the same way. And I mean, I don't think you should be able to just say theories that are like damning or bad about someone without backing it up. But I also don't think that every single thing in this universe has to be or can be explained by science, right?
Exactly.
Or at least not yet. Maybe someday the science and the intuition aspect will meet up and we'll be able to explain it all. But I'm happy just to believe it and know, like, through my own intuition that it's right.
Oh, that it's wrong, right? That like, oh wait, something's off. I
Yes.
I know I have this memory of Nelson Mandela or Ed McMahon or Sinbad, and I know it's there.
Right.
So something's wrong. I don't necessarily need to be like I'm 100% dying on the hill of this theory. I just like knowing that like other people have thought it out and have researched and have said, let me present you with this idea.
Yes, exactly.
I live for that.
Same.
Awesome. This was fun, Jay.
Yeah.
Maybe there'll be some kind of Mandela effect in the future about this podcast, and we'll go back and listen and be like, I never remember saying that one.
That happens to every podcast that we make. I don't remember saying any of it.
Same. Oh,
Wow,
too funny.
that word up.
All right. Well, this was fun. Thanks, Jay.
Well, thank you.
Talk to you soon.
All right, bye.
Bye. Hey, thanks for listening to our episode. For show notes and a place to send feedback, please visit our website, embodylove.me/intuitivegirls. Again, that's embodylove.me/intuitivegirls.